Hello, Assassins! Gargudon here, and welcome to episode 15 of the Assassin's Creed podcast, The Memory Corridor, here on The Ones Who Came Before. Today, I'm joined by the newest recruit in our partnership program here on the channel, MrKyleMarvell. Say hi.
Hello there.
Now tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your role in the partnership program, and what you do here in the AC community.
Yeah, so I'm the most recent member of the partnership program for The Ones Who Came Before. My YouTube name is MrMarvell. My Twitter name is KyleMarvell, my actual name. And yeah, I started making videos towards the end of last year. Made quite a few Assassin's Creed videos and whatnot, whether they're like fan trailers, tribute videos, or opinion pieces. And yeah, Cole quite liked my recent video, so he offered me a place in the partnership, and looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing, uploading more Assassin's Creed content. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Oh yeah, that sounds great, and we're glad to have you. So yeah, and if you want to check out Kyle's videos here, you can find it on his channel, which there will be a link to in the description. So today we are going to be diving into the legacy and potential return of the Kenway family. I did do a discussion-based video back in 2017, somewhat briefly and loosely covering this topic, but given that was a long time ago, it would only be right to do another and proper discussion focusing on this. So, with all intros and explanations out of the way, let's take the Jackdaw and sail on to the ocean that is this topic. So, the first thing I want to talk about is, what do you think Edward was up to after the events of Black Flag while living in London, and how do you think he in that time shaped the future of the Kenways, and what would become his legacy?
So, I did read both the Forsaken and Black Flag novels. It was a while ago, but my understanding, he was building the Brotherhood in London. He was, both sort of the high class, middle class, working class. He was trying to build those relationships, and
yeah, he was.
I believe.
He was. From what I understand, he was like high class himself.
Yeah.
But he wanted to share with everyone.
That's right, and that's what the Brotherhood's all about. I believe he went to Italy. He tried to go to some precursor sites as well. But there's not too much information on that, I believe.
No, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I do like to believe that I think it's 13-12 years between like when Black Flag ends and before he gets killed at a rather young age of 42 in 1735. Yeah. I do like to believe he kind of worked in London as an assassin, like an assassin does regularly, and then maybe traveled around Europe to precursor sites and such. One thing we do know, he did take out Governor Woodes Rogers at one point. You remember the antagonist from Black Flag?
Yes.
Because in real life he didn't die until 1732, and that would be like 10 years after like Edward went back home to London after the events of Black Flag. That means that like either Woodes Rogers, he was like Edward just waited, or he was hard as hell to track down, or Edward waited for the right time to take him down. So yeah, obviously Edward kept working as an assassin and such, and make the Kenway family assassins. He at least tried to do that, because from what I understand, like he started training Haytham at a rather young age, but obviously that didn't work out. We know that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, because he got killed, and then Reginald Birch, who was like a close friend of the Kenways, he took in Haytham and made him a Templar. Do you think that like Reginald Birch, him being friends with the Kenway family, that was why he wanted Edward dead? He saw potential in Haytham and wanted to make him like the perfect Templar apprentice.
Yeah, I think
and therefore
so,
he had Edward killed.
He had assassin skills as well to go along with it, and yeah, he just see Haytham as his like sort of protege, really, didn't he? But it's really odd. Do you think they planned it that well with Edward dying?
Yeah, from what I understand, it was in 1735 on the way home from the opera. Like it was, I think, Caroline or not Caroline, Jennifer is his daughter, and his family, Hatham and Edward. I can't remember who were there, but a group of mercenaries, of thugs, intimidated Edward and killed him. And then he died at the age of 42, rather young. That sucked and stuff. And then allowing Hatham to become a Templar, because from what I understand it, he kind of trained, taught Hatham the beliefs of the assassins and stuff from a young age, not necessarily the combat skills. So Hatham didn't really know about the conflict, obviously making it easier for, let's say, Reginald to turn him into a Templar during his, as he would become older, Hatham.
Yeah, it's such a shame.
Yeah.
It's just part of the story.
So I think it says that Edward believed in the assassins, so much he wanted to, he wanted to continue, he wanted to keep the Kenway's assassins, and that's why he started training Hatham at a young age, and hoping he would become an assassin as well, and just keep the family assassins, not necessarily because of their beliefs, because Edward, even after or mainly before he becomes an assassin, but in general, he is this very, sort of anti-person, really just, he really believes in the everything is permitted thing. Especially during, early stages of the Black Flag story, and maybe even a bit still after he's, officially becomes an assassin. But, he believed in what they did and, the good they did, and he wanted to protect, himself and others. So therefore, he wanted to keep them assassins. And that's why he started training Hatham, and ultimately why he got killed at such a young age, I guess.
Well, everything is permitted. I remember him saying in Black Flags.
He says to, what is it, Atabai, everything is permitted. Yeah. Isn't that your motto? As an excuse for just doing whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, I think let's have it straight. They should have done a second game with Edward. They should have.
A second game? Yeah, perhaps.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, yeah, perhaps. I mean, but I guess in general, in general, as I said, Edward just wanted, he wanted to keep the Kenway's assassins and keep the assassin and the Kenway blood. But obviously that didn't work out. But I want to go into, I guess, theorizing territory here now. Let's say that Hatham, Edward didn't get killed that night, and Hatham grew up to become, an assassin and everything. Everything in the time, the bigger history would have played out differently, and we don't know who would have come after Hatham, but I don't know. Perhaps the British Brotherhood would have been bigger, perhaps, in a way.
Oh yes,
because from what I understand, Edward was slowly building up the British Brotherhood, but then that kind of died with him in a way, and then we don't really see them, re-emerging until the events of Syndicate in the 1860s, which is about 130 years later.
Yeah, let's be honest. It would have been a real stronghold to the assassins, really, if Edward would have survived that day.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Oh God, what a game that could have been.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, he would have had a massive influence. He is a master assassin after all.
Absolutely.
Even at the age of 42, he was a master assassin. And when you play Syndicate, is it Henry? Yeah, Henry. When they go to his mansion, he's like a legend, and he was only 42.
Absolutely, and absolutely. So yeah. So I guess overall that in those let's say 13 years between 1722 when Black Flag ends and Edward's death in 1735. He just, kept evolving as an assassin and tried to, build up the British Brotherhood, and while slowly training his son Hatham from a relatively young age, and Edward still kept going as an assassin. I can't remember if it's official, but I bet he had Edward used a cane sword, during his time in London. kind of like Evie and Jacob would be using. I like to imagine that had like a skull or something on it, because he was a former pirate.
Yeah.
I like to imagine that. So yeah, and he just kept going as an assassin, keeping the peace. Obviously, killing Wood, as I said, Woodes Rogers there in 1732, because he swore to Adewale he would kill him. He would tie that knot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how he trained Haytham and how Haytham would have taken over.
Absolutely, and I think I read at one point that he was rather harsh to Haytham, during the training. But I don't know if that is true, because Edward's a lighthearted person. And as I said, I can't remember if he started training Haytham in combat from a very young age. Sword fighting and such. Yeah, I can't quite remember, but yeah. But I think we can also agree that even though, nothing went to plan since he died, Haytham got brainwashed, let's call it that, into becoming a Templar. Just overall, Edward still, he made the Kenways assassins, because if, his grandson would later become an assassin and such. Like, in a way, his grandson would, Connor, would finish what Edward started in a way. Kind of like all Darth Vader, Kylo Ren style. Yeah, I will finish what you started, grandfather. Yeah, and as you said, also just he left behind a big legacy, Kenway or Edward. That he's a legend among the British assassins, as we see in Syndicate and such. So yeah.
Yeah, they should have done more with that mission, I think.
Yeah, I had actually hoped there would be, like, obviously I loved that mission where you sneak into Edward's mansion, you can find all those relics, the flag and cast of the model of the Jackdaw and such. But I would have been cool if there was like a mission called Kenway's Legacy, where you would unlock maybe Edward's Master Assassin outfit or something, and you could wear as Jacob. I mean, obviously you had Edward's outfit, but it would have been cool to see what his epic, like very formal, high class British kind of posh Master Assassin looked like, or Master Assassin outfit looked like.
Yeah, imagine like a flashback. Oh, I guess it would be a flashback, but like
that would have been even cooler if there was like Syndicate. If there was like a flashback, but that wouldn't really have suited the game's mechanics and style. That there was like a flashback mission where you're out sailing and you're Edward, and it could have been, or maybe where he's just in London. That could have been cool. Yeah. Kind of like this flashback memory mission where you play as Edward in the 1720s, 1730s or something, and you're Edward wearing this outfit, and that would have been cool.
Yeah, that's what I think about a lot of Assassin's Creed games. There's like missed opportunities like that. I know it's not easy making games.
Absolutely not.
Keep into the line, but little things like that they could have done.
Absolutely.
It's like a 40-minute mission as Edward in Syndicate.
Absolutely, and then it could have been just like kind of like a London story side mission, like there were Charles Darwin and Queen Victoria and Charles Dickens, those missions. But perhaps there was an Edward sequence or something where you're like reminiscing and playing as him. But that reminds me, it was mostly Evie who was like, who knew about the history of the assassins and the British Brotherhood. So my question is did Jacob even know about Edward? I bet he did, considering how anti both of them were in personalities. Like, Jacob and Edward would have made great friends. I don't doubt that for a second. Both reckless, and they don't really care about anything, and they would have made great friends. And gang leaders, and they would have made great friends, the two of them. Loving to drink, and they would have made great pals. But it could have been cool, this mission, as I said, Kenway's Legacy, and then you find like his Master Assassin outfit, or some other thing he left behind, outfits, weapons, something else unique. Don't know what that would be, like a relic or something. And you kind of, clues throughout London, like hidden messages he left throughout the city, and That could have been cool, and as you said, that was kind of a missed opportunity. As I said, as I also said, not that it would have suited the game necessarily, but it could have been cool with these flashback memories. But at least just this Kenway's legacy side mission where you find his relics and his hidden messages and whatnot. That was definitely a missed opportunity, kind of like the Nostradamus enigmas in Unity, I guess you could call it. You know, these hidden messages, hidden signs. You could only see them with eagle vision, and then you found Thomas de Canillon's outfit, legendary outfit, and they should have done a mission like that. But then again, you did have already one outfit, hidden messages thing. I think it was the Secrets of London, those musical boxes that gave you the Minerva outfit for Eevee. But still, it would have been cool to see something, related to Edward's legacy. So yeah. Now, I think we've covered this first point really all round. Do you have anything you want to add to it?
Not so much, other than it would have completely changed Haytham, of course.
Absolutely. I guess, or I did talk about this, as I said, in that discussion-based video I did a few years back, but let's not dive too much into that now. As I said, kind of dive into fanfic land, like, what would have happened if there's this or that, but one thing I guess we could quickly cover is, like, even though they parted ways, do you think Edward kept Anne Bonny in his memory and kind of, like, took, like, what she wanted Edward to be? Like, he kept that close to him and kept that in mind while, living in London and, raising Haytham and his daughter and such. Because I like to imagine, like, what would have happened if Anne went with Edward to London. And as I maybe I've said this before, but I kind of feel like Anne and Edward, their relationship should have been developed even more. Not that they were romantically involved necessarily, but hell, it would have worked for all I care. Because they definitely have a bond, that is explored, throughout the end of the game especially. So yeah, and I think, I can't remember where I read it, and I don't remember how legit it is, but I think in one draft for Black Flag, in an early draft, during the ending sequence, they even, like, kissed goodbye or something, Anne and Edward. There at at the cove on the terrace. I don't remember if it was fake, but I think I read that was supposed to happen in an early draft for the game.
Edward definitely liked her.
Definitely, yeah. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked her if he want. Obviously, she was her quartermaster, his quartermaster. But why? Yeah, why else would he have asked her to come to London, like sail to the other side of the world? And for what I know, she stayed, in the West Indies, privateering, and did she become an assassin, or like half assassin at one point?
I don't think she wasn't.
Because I think there's a a drawing of her with. I think there's a drawing of her with a hidden blade.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's official or if it's just fan art, but I don't know. I like to imagine that happened, but from what I know, Anne, she died naturally at a pretty young age, like during the 1740s or something, or late 1730s. She died of like natural causes or disease or something. I don't know. But still, I like to imagine, that even though they parted ways, they kept each other close in their hearts.
I definitely think so.
And I think Anne inspired Edward to be, as Mary, as you mentioned also, but especially Anne, she inspired Edward to become a better man. And, as she says, you'll make a great father too, if, you're a good man and stuff.
That gets me. That gets me.
And I do like to imagine that even if it wasn't mutual, like one of them, or especially Edward, he had feelings for Anne to some degree. If it was friends or romantically.
Yeah, surely.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, and I can only imagine how that would have played out. If Anne helped raise Haytham, probably wouldn't most likely have been born then. But what would have happened, like, if, let's say that for a what if video or something, like if Anne went to with Edward to London, and she helped raise Jennifer, become her stepmom, and and how the legacy would have played out differently, and how like Edward's aftermath would have played out differently. But yeah, let's save that, as I said, for like a what if video or something. So yeah. All right, I think we've covered this point pretty good. Should we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, sure.
All right, that is. Do you think it's possible we'll see the Kenway family return in future AC games, either by seeing and/or playing as a direct descendant, or through them being mentioned and uncovering their past, like in AC Syndicate as mentioned?
Well, I think there's more of a chance now that Darby seems to be more involved, and fingers crossed he continues to be involved.
Yeah.
Will the higher-ups want to bring back a character? Probably not.
I mean, one possible option for that would be, because it is confirmed that Connor had a daughter, and that is in the Assassin's Creed Reflections comic. I haven't read it, but I've heard that, he raised his daughter. That focuses on Connor raising his daughter and whatnot. And in general, I've said this before, I would love to see Connor's story properly wrapped up. In general, a game that kind of focuses on wrapping up Connor, Shay's, and Arno's story, considering, all of them were kind of lived around the same time and such, and their stories kind of tie into each other. I would love to see kind of like an AC3 epilogue game that, closes both Shay's and Connor's stories, that, shows the aftermath of AC3, and shows Shay how he lived, as an older man. Because some people say that Connor, he kept being depressed and, being traumatized by his past, and he kind of kept going with that sadness throughout his life. But, him having a daughter kind of proves the opposite. That, he found his purpose, and if that's his daughter, he made his apprentice or something, that gives me an idea. Since there's been so much baffle lately, about female leads being cut for time and female characters being cut for time in AC games, and the rising of the whole AC sisterhood thing, that would be a perfect opportunity that we kind of play as Connor's daughter, and her being his apprentice, and we play as her and only her in a game, and sole female lead. She would be a good opportunity for that. Let's say it like that.
Mate, you've sold me. I would definitely love that sort of game.
Yeah.
Especially as you say, Connor's daughter.
I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but I like to imagine a game set in like the late 1790s. Shay's an older man by now, but that doesn't mean he's any less deadly. Yeah. Everything Connor's built up, to take his revenge, he tears that down in a matter of a month, kills the assassins throughout the colonies, including Aveline or something, and, brings Connor to his knees. And Connor needs to rebuild, and he starts training his daughter or something, or some other apprentice or something. Maybe even he starts training another apprentice. He's become romantically involved with his daughter, or I don't know, but let's not dive too much into that. And then, Arno is called for help from across the pond, and, it's likely never going to happen, but I would just love to see this kind of North American epilogue, since, both, like, the American games, let's call it that, in the Americas, and the Kenway family, they're such a big part of AC. It would be a shame to not make them appear again.
I agree, I totally agree. I mean, they don't even have to have it as an open world game, really.
Kind of like a side story, like the Chronicle games?
Oh no, I wouldn't want that, no.
but you said like it wouldn't have to be an open world game necessarily.
Just a game like, say, God of War or Uncharted, mate. It doesn't have to be open world.
Oh yeah,
tell
okay.
These stories,
oh yeah,
I
guess.
They have to do that, but just tell a good story.
Absolutely. But in general, like, I would also just, as I said, I would love to see more of Connor, and since he is like, as he's obviously traumatized by his past, and we see throughout, especially early on in AC3, he doesn't necessarily understand, like, the modern world, since he's a minority. And I would love to see him kind of struggle. I don't know if he kept on to it. I think he fit it in the end, but I would love to see him, trying to fit in still, and, see how that challenges his fatherhood,
Yeah.
Him being a good father, and the relationship. I don't know who the mother of his daughter is and who Connor's partner is, but also see his relationship with her, and you know, I bet they lived there on the homestead in Achilles' old home, and such. Because the thing is, I've talked about this in episode 1, way back of this podcast, but there are double opinions on Connor's character. And I understand, like, some people love him, some people really don't. I don't think he's like, as I said, I think he's a great character, but he can definitely become even better. There can definitely be added even more to his story.
I totally agree. It felt his ending just felt empty to me. Just felt like,
in a way, yeah. And you know, it was not even like half of AC3 we spent playing as Connor being an assassin. The first 3 sequences is Haytham, then it's Connor, you know, being trained and such. And you know, when you put on the ropes, you're already like halfway through the campaign. So the main story. So that would be fun, you know, seeing him as a fully fledged master assassin, even in new ropes, and you know, seeing how he is challenged by Shay. Sure, Shay would be around 65 or something here, but as I said, that doesn't mean he's any less deadly. Connor would like, and then they're in one encounter. Connor barely survives that, and then he has to start, you know, training his apprentice and, you know, rebuilding the Brotherhood and, you know, taking out Shay and such. I just hope to see, like, you know, because Connor alone and, let's say, his daughter and just the Kenway bloodline in general has a lot of potential. Because it's the only, like, major bloodline in the AC series, you know, that we've seen reoccurring and such. Kind of like, maybe the Kenways are Assassin's Creed's version of the Skywalkers, maybe.
Yeah.
To some degree. Because as I said, like, that would also be cool to see Connor kind of uncover his grandfather's past. You know, he learns more about Edward, because we only see it, like, only time he ever mentions him is during the Tyranny of King Washington. Do you remember that?
Oh god, yeah.
He briefly mentions, like, Faulkner asks, your father was a sailor, wasn't he? And he says, my grandfather Edward, and like, son, I don't know much about him, but that would be fun, you know, maybe even Connor traveling to England, to London, you know, to learn more about, you know, his grandfather, more about his family, more about the assassins and all that stuff, and even his own father, for that matter.
Or even the Caribbean. Imagine him going through the
Caribbean. You sail to the Caribbean a little during some of those privateering contracts in AC3, but nothing real, you know, Connor sailing to maybe like Great Inagua or Kingston or one of those major locations from Black Flag, Cape Bonavista or something like that.
Well, that's what I said earlier, and like you said, there are many missed opportunities in these few games, in the Kenway games, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you shouldn't milk just because they're a Kenway, but it would be fun to, you know, to return and, you know, see Connor uncover his past, because as I said, you know, it's kind of random that the Kenways became assassins in the first place. It was because Edward was out chasing money that he found himself suddenly in the middle of some conflict between two cults that he couldn't care less about.
That's what I love about Black Flag. It's like,
but then he obviously sees the good in the assassins, and, you know, to make the others happy, you know, the ones he's lost happy, and himself, you know, find personal closure. You know, he starts becoming an assassin to not keep dealing in death and misery and whatnot. And then, you know, he wanted, you know, obviously to train his son, but, you know, that never worked out because he was killed because Reginald Birch, I guess, saw potential in Haytham.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's obviously unfortunate. And then, you know, I can't imagine, like, Edward, how ashamed he would be of Haytham or something if he saw what he became.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because even in Assassin's Creed 3, when Connor and Haytham have those debates about who's right, who's wrong, you kind of question who's right and who's wrong. There was that debate on the terrace.
Yeah.
Before there was a bad debate. You're like, hang on, Haytham's making some good points here.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about these games.
Kind of like, I guess, kind of like Rey, now that we've talked about Star Wars, but kind of like Rey, you know, she's a mix of, you know, she ends up becoming a Grey Jedi. You know, she believes in the Jedi's code, but she also takes power from the Sith to become the ultimate Force user, you know? And, she's obviously a Palpatine, biologically, but, spiritually she's a Skywalker. So that could be fun, Connor kind of master that, both beliefs run in his blood. His grandfather was an assassin, his father was a Templar. And I don't really think we've ever seen kind of like, let's call it this gray assassin before. And if anything, Connor is the ideal candidate for, like, existing characters. I mean, you could obviously probably write a new good character, but we just know Connor, and there's an entire bloodline. There's already 2 games to go to, a source material to go from. So it would be very interesting, and maybe, he passes that on to his daughter or something, and
Well, I found Assassin's Creed 3 interesting.
Absolutely, and I replayed it at the beginning of the year here, AC3 Remastered, and after not playing it for years, and I think it gets a lot of unnecessary hate, to be completely honest. I mean, there's a lot of fun things to do, and while the story isn't brilliant and perhaps is a bit short at points, it's still good for what it is, and I like Connor's character and all that stuff. In reality, I think
I've got a quote here from Benjamin Church. I'll put a few notes.
Oh, those are that was another Templar. Yeah, that's the guy, Benjamin Church.
Yeah, this is what I like about Assassin's Creed 3, because it was the memory corridors or confessions, whatever you want to call them. They were very well written, in my opinion, and Benjamin Church said, "It's all a matter of perspective. There is no single path through life that's right and fair and does no harm."
Yeah, and that's also, another thing that Rogue focuses on is the hypocrisy of the assassins. That their beliefs are flawed. And that's what I love about Rogue and, Shay's character, and that would also be fun to explore, Connor, coming from an assassin Templar family, let's call it that, and, him colliding with Shay, and, their beliefs, in some ways they're opposite, but maybe in some ways they also, not saying that they make allies at all, but, maybe their beliefs maybe they agree at some points on their beliefs. Yeah, that could be interesting. So yeah, I guess overall I think we've covered this pretty good. There's a lot of potential for the Kenways to return. If that's like Connor, that's Connor's daughter. If that's a game, as I said, focusing on wrapping up Shay, Connor, and Arno's stories all in one, especially the first 2, and then kind of throw Arno in as not a main character, but kind of like a supporting character, throughout some of the game, and not necessarily that you play as him. Maybe a few missions like where you're him in Paris, like, and then he gets this letter from the Americas saying we're in desperate need of help. We need assassins from across the pond to help us rebuild the Brotherhood, and then he sets sail for America, and that could also be fun too. Arno's another character that I wouldn't say he was wasted, but I would just say I wanted to see a little bit more of him. I wanted a little more character, maybe backstory, because while Unity does get a lot of unnecessary hate, I actually really like the game. Just like the overall game is really fun. There's a ton of things to do, and I love the parkour, and the map is pretty cool as well. And the story is great, just a little bit short. But yeah, I would love to see like some more of Arno, in a way. How he dealt with the death of Elise even years later. Because from what I know, he took some years off, he was just drinking, and then the events of Dead Kings happened a few years later.
Yeah, Dead Kings didn't really.
Yeah, that was kind of I kind of didn't understand it that well. Like, Napoleon gets arrested, but then a few years later he's free, and him and Arno work together and investigate the temple. I didn't necessarily follow that, but other than that, Unity was an okay game, to say the least, and Arno was a decent character, and if anything, I think the Arno-Elise relationship should have been explored further.
So I agree with that as well. Like, what happened next? I guess they can't
Yeah, and that also kind of annoys me. It recently hit the spotlight that Elise was supposed to be playable at some points, but it was cut due to a bunch of bull.
Yeah.
Because
this is the thing.
because Elise
Some
was
of the female characters over the years haven't been written that well, in my opinion.
no. I mean,
this was before
but
stuff came out.
but we have, as we said, decent characters like Mary Reed, Anne Bonny,
Yeah.
Elise de la Serre, Evie Fry. There are decent female characters in the different AC games.
But I would say Black Flag has the best side characters.
Absolutely. Your recent video, which to the viewers, definitely go check that out. It's a video essay about Black Flag that Kyle made. You can find it on the channel. Definitely go check that out. But yeah, as you said, Black Flag has a bunch of important side characters, and as you said in your video, each one of them leaves their mark on Edward, and inspires Edward to become a better man. And as you said, some of those pirates, what's his name, Hornigold, Rackham, not really Rackham, but rather Charles Vane. They help him become a privateer, and Thatch, of course, Blackbeard. They kind of help him become a privateer. Introduce him to the world of boarding ships and looting and thieving and all that stuff. While Mary Reed, is more his spiritual beliefs and him as a person, kind of making Edward a better person in a way, introducing him to the ways of the assassins and that stuff. And then there's Anne, who's like early on seems like a nobody, who's just like a bartender at that tavern in Nassau, but then she obviously is kind of what saves Edward in a way.
Yeah, she is my favourite female character in the series.
And Bonnie, yeah. She's definitely, I'd say, up there. My personal might be Evie Fry in a way. I don't know. But she's definitely up there, Anne, for sure.
Yeah, I need to play Syndicate again.
Yeah.
Because I think I made a video, it's not on the ones who came before, for my favourite female characters, and I think it was Anne Bonny #1, and I like Cassandra, who's #2.
I wouldn't know much about Cassandra. I never played Odyssey, unfortunately, but yeah.
Mary Reed, I like Rebecca Crane.
Oh yeah,
Bex,
of course, Bex.
Partner. Yeah.
Ezio's, sorry, Christina, or what did you say?
Oh, Sophia.
Oh, Sophia, and then there's Claudia, of course, Ezio's sister, and all that stuff as well. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully there's more of a emphasis on the female characters and playable characters in the future. Yeah. And as I said, I said, if the Kenways were to return, Connor Stoddard is the perfect candidate for a sole female lead, because I don't know how I'm feeling about this whole, you can play as a male or female, and now was it confirmed that it's female Eivor who's canon in Valhalla, the upcoming game? I did see something like that.
I mean, that's just don't even bother multiple choicing if only one is canon. And look, I might catch hell for saying this. I know there probably were some female Vikings, but it just seems odd in a way. Like, a majority of Vikings were males. So it's just why not make his story canon? Because it's only Cassandra's story that is canon, right? In Odyssey?
Apparently, yeah, but
it's just no, stop.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would have no problem playing as a sole female lead, because I think in general, we're so used to male characters in games that whenever we get to play as a female, it's just a breath of fresh air. And that's why in different online games I play, I don't know if you've touched those, but Grand Theft Auto Online and Red Dead Online, Rockstar's multiplayer's mode, I play as a female character there just because, it's fun. And, then I have different cool clothing options that I wouldn't have for, my male character, jewelry and, different hats and coats and dresses and such.
Oh yeah, I like playing as a female. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of my favourite games.
Right.
Ayla was brilliant. I just don't think Ubisoft trust themselves to write brilliant female characters.
In Syndicate they nailed it.
I don't think they trust themselves.
They really did nail it in Syndicate, because, you played us both simultaneously, Jacob and Evie, and it's completely canon, because, some are Jacob's missions, some are Evie's missions, and, some could be played as both. and then some could only be played as Eevee, and some could only be played as Jacob. So yeah. And that's just like there are different games, you know, where you have like different characters where you switch between them, and you know, that is just like, if anything, Ubisoft, just do that again. You switch between a male and a female.
Well, I think
and another game is, you know, I don't know if you played that, GTA 5. You know, there you have 3 protagonists, all of whom are males, yes, but you switch between them simultaneously. And then some missions, you know, you play as all 3. This part can only be played as Michael, this can only be played as Franklin, and this can only be played as Trevor. And I think that were in some parts in Syndicate. I think it was only the final mission, but then you were Jacob, and then you automatically switched to Eevee, and that worked really well, and it's just an interesting concept and an interesting dynamic that for games in general. So yeah.
Why don't you think they did that in Odyssey? You haven't played Odyssey yet.
I don't know, but I guess, as you said, they were too insecure on writing a good female character or not making the dynamic work, or they couldn't find a way to make the dynamic work. Would be my best bet.
I think they could have made it work.
Yeah, definitely. Of course they could have. I don't know.
So we'll see what happens in the coming years, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I'm just like, I guess we'll have to see where Valhalla goes, like commercially and stuff. And I don't know. Perhaps AC is running on fumes at this point. Like as a series, and especially the games aspect is running on fumes. Also with all the controversies that recently hit, and yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. I'm not as hyped as I normally am. I must admit.
And I mean, I guess I can say this. I don't plan on getting Valhalla at release. I have absolutely 0 expectations, and I'm not sold at all. And there are loads of reasons, dozens of reasons for that. But, and that's just sad. I mean, I became an AC fan only a few years back. Around the time Syndicate came out, I was really stoked for that, and I loved that game when it came out. Origins, I got that, but I pre-ordered it like 2 weeks before it came out, and I had absolutely 0 expectations. I didn't even play it that much when it came out, and I fell off it pretty quickly, and ultimately I have more negatives to say than positives. Alright, but other than that, I think we've covered this pretty good. Do you have anything you want to add to this, like Return of Kenway? Or anything you want to ask me?
I'll be proper hyped for it, whether it's Edward or Connor I'll be proper hyped for it. Whether it happens or not is another question. But as I said earlier, if Darby's still there and he's working on every game, which I don't know if that's a possibility or not, then it could well happen. And I'll back it all the way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, we'll just have to see what happens, I guess. So, yeah. All right. Now, those were the questions I had for you. Do you have anything you would like to ask me before we slowly wrap this up?
Yeah, I was going to sort of ask, with Rogue,
yeah,
especially, but Assassin's Creed 3, was you ever like sort of on the side of the Templars? Was you ever like, oh, the Templars are definitely right?
During Rogue? I'll say it like this. That was what they nailed with Rogue pretty good, is that it portrayed the assassins as the hypocrites really well and kind of the bad guys. But if anything, it was like the mains who were mainly portrayed as assholes were, what's his name, Liam, Shay's friend, Achilles, and Adewale of all people. Adewale's like, oh, I removed this thing, I caused a massive earthquake in Haiti, but I don't know, that just happened, I guess, while Shay's out there feeling guilty and you guys are hypocrites. And killing Adewale was somewhat satisfying. I never thought I would say that, but it was. And but then in the end, Achilles, he's kind of forgiven because he kind of realizes that Shay was right. He knows of this artifact that, like, Jesus, what have we done? So I was rooting for the Templars. I was not necessarily rooting for the Templars, but I was rooting for Shay. Because not necessarily that he believes in everything, like, you know, total control and all that stuff. Because I don't think Shay as a person does that. But he believes that the assassins are hypocrites, and that they, even though they say they protect the masses, they also kill them unintentionally. And they don't really care that if anyone dies. If it's of natural causes or something, but something you were clearly responsible for. It's only stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent. That's the only thing that matters, and the only thing resulting in being expelled from the Brotherhood.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I would like to cover that on a future episode. Maybe kind of like more theoretical aspect, but kind of maybe like the hypocrisy of the assassins. Kind of dive into, you know, the beliefs of each cult. Let's call it that. Both the assassins and the Templars.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So yeah. Overall, Rogue was great. I probably need to play the remastered version sooner than later. I haven't played it in like 5 years. Played it on the Xbox 360 a few years back, but I haven't played the remastered yet. So yeah, there's something for a rainy day.
Yeah, same.
Sure. All right. But yeah. Anything else you want to ask me, or should we slowly wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we've covered.
All right. I think we've also covered a lot of good stuff. So. With that said and done, I just want to thank all of you for watching and listening to episode 15 of The Memory Corridor, and I hope you enjoyed listening to us cover this topic. Stay up to date on everything happening on the ones who came before, and more things Assassin's Creed, such as occasional Assassin's Creed virtual photography. Links to our, as well as my personal social media pages can be found in the description below, should you be interested in following us. Now, Kyle here really isn't active on social media, but you can still keep your eyes out for more of his video projects coming sooner or later here on The Ones Who Came Before. And as always, if anyone has feedback and or topic ideas for future episodes, feel more than free to share it in the comment section below. Now, here at the end, I just wanted to inform you all that this is most likely going to be the final Memory Corridor episode you're going to be seeing on the channel for at least a little while. I will be taking a short break from making new episodes to focus on some other non-Assassin's Creed projects. And to those curious what that is, I can happily say it is a new Rockstar Games podcast I have started, focusing on games such as Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. So if you're into those games, you can check that out should it be. Now, this doesn't mean I'm gonna be totally disappearing from the ones who came before until new episodes come out. There just won't be any new Corridor episodes most likely until the end of the year. Amongst other things, I have just published an article on the Ones Who Came Before website called This Week in Assassin's Creed Photography, which is going to be weekly, kind of summarizing the virtual photography aspect of Assassin's Creed and sharing some of my favorite shots from the Assassin's Creed community taken and shared on various social media throughout the week. So yeah. Regardless, thanks for watching and listening, everyone. I hope to see all of you again when the podcast returns and episode 16 rolls out, most likely at the end of the year. Until that happens, stay safe in these still ongoing pandemic times, everyone, and nonetheless, keep this awesome community what it is. And finally, thanks to Kyle for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'll do it again sometime in the future for sure.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to have you on here. So yeah. And that sums it up for episode 15 of The Memory Corridor. Stay safe and active, everyone. See you later, Assassins. Peace.